So Pete Carson and the crew are back in court again, defending Bungie against the latest lawsuit. Seems that Bungie spend half their time in court at the moment. This time it centers around a story you may have heard about a few months back, where Bungie were accused of stealing components of the Red War storyline that originally launched with Destiny 2. As a result of this though, some interesting news coming out about vaulted content for Destiny, and Bungie themselves confirm they have no playable version of the original Red War campaign, even in the studio, as they defend themselves against a lawsuit which is pretty sketchy right here. So this is some reporting from the Game Post. Bungie explains why there's no feasible way to play Destiny 2's vaulted Red War campaign, even internally via new court filings. So Bungie says that the vaulted Red War campaign can't be accessed even internally, and the studio have made it clear in new court filings that the original D2 Red War campaign isn't just gone for players, it apparently no longer exists in any playable form, even within the studio. The company says the game's original story mode, which was removed in 2020, is now completely inaccessible. And this came to light as part of an ongoing copyright lawsuit filed against Bungie by writer Matthew Kelsey, who claims that Bungie copied elements of his unpublished works to create the Red War storyline. So going back a few months, it's alleged that Bungie lifted key ideas, characters, and themes from the writer's work, including a faction called the Red Legion, and a plot that involves an exiled warrior trying to take control of a powerful celestial object orbiting Earth. And initially, Bungie denied these claims, calling them baseless and asking the court to dismiss the case, but as part of its defense, Bungie also dropped a detail that Destiny 2 fans may find disappointing, stating that the Red War campaign no longer exists in any playable form, even within the studio, which is why the developer used third-party community-created content as evidence in its court filings. So in order to defend itself, Bungie, I believe, actually referenced videos from My Name is Bife, some of those massive lore and story videos, to attempt to demonstrate that they in fact did not steal ideas from these other works. And Martineau's complaint centers on claims of striking similarities between his imagined Red Legion, a militaristic alien faction, and Destiny 2's Red Legion Cabal. But he also alleged that his characters and concepts, such as the alien leader Ynara and the Atomizer weapon, were copied in Destiny 2 as Dominus Ghaul and the Almighty, respectively. He further asserts that Bungie's work is not only derivative, but intentionally plagiaristic, and the writer is seeking damages and a court order to prevent Bungie from further using what he alleges to be his copyrighted material. Then going back to December, Bungie filed its official response, firmly rejecting the accusations and requesting that the court dismiss the case entirely, and the legal team argues that the claims are baseless, asserting that Martineau has failed to demonstrate factual copying or substantial similarities between his work and the Destiny 2 campaign. And the response includes a declaration from Jonathan Toe, Bungie's narrative lead, who pointed out that Martineau's references to specific gameplay and narrative elements rely on publicly accessible fan-made content and third-party websites. Additionally, Bungie are seeking recovery of all legal fees and costs under copyright law, and Bungie are essentially stating that this writer is only basing these claims on information that is available on the internet, media, videos, potentially some of the same content that Bungie are using to defend itself essentially, because the Red War is no longer actually playable. So they didn't bring the court case until after Red War had been vaulted for a few years, which is pretty wild because it means that the case is essentially using Destiny community content, right, content creator videos, and other resources to draw the similarities between their own work and Bungie's work with the Red War. So that's a pretty bizarre component, obviously. And on this basis, the Game Post go on to say Destiny 2's Red War campaign is probably not returning anytime soon. Honestly, it's not something that I expected Bungie to go back to, despite the fact that there has been some community interest in that. But they reiterate Bungie's response, and the head of engineering, David Aldridge, stated under oath that the original Red War campaign was removed from the game in 2020, and that it is now impossible to access in any playable form. And that's pretty wild that Bungie can't even boot that up, or at least that's what they're saying. There is no version, not even a development version of it, available. And according to Aldridge, while Bungie did archive the original game code, the rapid evolution of Destiny 2's underlying technology means that the Red War campaign is completely incompatible with the game's current operational framework. And so if Bungie wanted to bring it back, it would have to rebuild it from scratch, rather than simply reactivate it. And that's both kind of crazy in a way, but also, we've heard about this before, right? It was around about the time that Beyond Light dropped, Bungie did some significant updates to the game engine for Destiny. And that's why a lot of things were vaulted at the same time, because they essentially became incompatible. So the article goes on to say, Bungie archives the original code that comprised the Red War campaign, known as a legacy build. However, the Red War legacy build can no longer run because its outdated code is incompatible with Destiny 2's evolved underlying framework. So Bungie cannot feasibly provide the court court with the original Destiny 2 game as it existed in 2017, including the accused Red Warp campaign, in any operable or reviewable form. Nor will Bungie be able to produce the original accused campaign in operational or reviewable form should this matter proceed to formal discovery. And the post goes on to say this statement also applies to all other vaulted content before Beyond Light, meaning that fan-favourite activities like Leviathan or Old Strikes likely suffered the same fate, and Bungie have consistently said that bringing back vaulted content would be difficult. So for long-time Destiny fans, this is probably disappointing news, as the article points out. Although, as we have seen, Bungie have been able to bring certain pieces of content back and update them or rebuild them on the new game engine, which is why we've seen assets used from, vanilla Destiny 2 and Destiny 1, with the Dreadnought returning in Heresy as a relevant example right now. So Bungie can indeed rebuild bits of content. And on the subject of things like Leviathan, obviously Bungie haven't spoken about this. I'm not sure if there'd really even be that much interest for Leviathan Raid to come back, but something which is more contained, like a singular activity or destination, would indeed be much easier for Bungie to rebuild for the current engine for Destiny 2. So it's an interesting conversation, and we know that there are components that Bungie can choose to bring back if they put the work into it. But obviously, an entire campaign spanning multiple destinations, cinematic content, activities, mechanics, dialogue, everything else, that is an entirely different story. So give us your thoughts about it down below. The article finishes though by saying Bungie is still pushing for the case to be dismissed, arguing that the claims don't hold up legally, and their latest court filings insist that Bungie's legal team is trying to shut down the claims before they can even be properly examined. And they argue that the similarities between his work and Destiny 2 are too specific to be a coincidence, and that Bungie should be forced to go through the discovery process, which would likely require the developer to hand over internal documents and communications about Red War's development. So obviously, this will be an ongoing thing. I am not remotely familiar with this writer's work. It's also interesting that they state that these were unpublished stories, which potentially would raise a question of how Bungie could actually access that stuff. I'm not sure. With very little information though, really, I would say it seems likely that perhaps there are many coincidences in the storytelling between Bungie and this other writer. That seems more likely than Bungie plagiarizing the whole thing, although the courts will ultimately decide. It's very interesting though that both sides in this battle are actually using community-created works and essentially records of what the Red War actually entailed in order to fight this case on both sides. So pretty wild stuff. There we go though, that is the news for today. Bungie just cannot get out of that courtroom, can they? So we'll see how it pans out, but yes, while the title poses the question, did Bungie steal the D2 storyline? Obviously, we can't answer that. My gut feeling is that it doesn't seem likely that that happened. Although at the same time, crazier things have happened in the game industry and in media in general, so we'll see what happens down the road. Give us your thoughts in the comment section though. Just a quick news update on this subject for today. If you've enjoyed the video, a rating below really helps us out as well, and get subscribed so I can keep you posted with more content. Otherwise though, thanks for watching, and I hope you guys have an awesome day.